What's up, Taiwan? I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. 2025 marks the 78th anniversary of the 228 incident, a painful day for many in Taiwan who lost family members in the violent government crackdown. Tiffany Wong spoke with some of the victims' families who came from the U.S., Japan, and Taiwan to remember their loved ones.
Pain still etched raw decades later. Families remember their loved ones 78 years after a brutal crackdown by the Chinese nationalist Kuomintang beginning on February 28, 1947, now known as the 228 incident. Some estimate that over 20,000 people were killed in the weeks that followed. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te addressed the victims' families for the first time since taking office, saying his government would aim to see the perpetrators of the incident held responsible.
目前台湾社会也有声音，为何只有受害者并无加害者？受害真相为何悠然不明？这款的代志。 除了无法度完全告慰受难者以及家属，社会嘛无法度得到真正的和解。
The 228 incident was a prelude to decades of state violence that followed. 38 years of martial law known as the White Terror. During that time, 228 became a forbidden topic. Discussing it could land you in prison. It wasn't until much later, the 1990s, when Taiwan became a democracy, that the government began to acknowledge the suffering of the victims. February 28th was made a national holiday, and now people come from near and far to commemorate loved ones lost in the violence. People like 19-year-old Megan Huang, who came with her family from the U.S. to honor her great-grandfather.
Because we didn't really know much about the event and kind of the details and the truth of what happened. So this whole trip was very eye-opening to learning about family history and I guess just learning about what happened.
81-year-old Aoyama Keisho lost his father when he was just 3 years old during the incident, the only known Japanese victim. He comes back every year from Okinawa to pay respects to his father.
台湾の人々も3万人近くの方々が犠牲になってとても悲しい事件。やはり日本の私もやはり同じような気持ちで台湾の人々の犠牲者家族と一緒になって弔いたいと思っています。今では私の孫も連れてきます。孫にも絶対伝えていきたいと思っています。
But even now, many believe the wrongs of the past still haven't been fully addressed. No one has been punished for their role in 228, and the Kuomintang remains a powerful political force in Taiwan.
国民政府说他是暴民，他当头子，现场被枪毙。以前都是国民政府都不来了，时代有在改变的。台湾人也可以做总统啊，所以才会来。
Here at the National 228 Memorial Museum, the long silent suffering of the victims is finally given voice. It's a space to honor them, to mourn them, and to educate the next generation so their lives are not forgotten. Alex Chen and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Every year, ahead of 228 Memorial Day, one activist in Taipei honors his brother's legacy of advocating for transitional justice. Wesley Lewis has the story.
For nearly a decade, 71-year-old Zheng Qinghua has been leading this annual march to commemorate what's known in Taiwan as the 228 incident, an anti-government uprising on February 28, 1947, and its subsequent violent crackdown. He's taken up the baton from his late older brother Zheng Nanrong, a well-known activist who organized some of the country's first 228 memorial events back in 1987, which were largely met with police suppression.
1987年，郑南榕他坚持穿西装，走在这个街头上，等于一种抗议的作为。然后他说，如果我被视为暴民，我也要很有尊严的表现出我这个暴民的这个身份出来啊，这是他所坚持。因此，我们这个行动呢，都希望能够的话，至少穿黑色服装。那如果穿西装更好。
The bloody government crackdown of the uprising on February 28, 1947, saw thousands of protesters killed and triggered mistrust, resentment, and intense socio-political divisions within Taiwanese society for years to come. This was when the Republic of China government, led by the Kuomintang, was trying to consolidate its rule over Taiwan. It was followed by a 38-year period of martial law and what's known as the White Terror, an era characterized by the political repression of dissent.
Now almost 80 years after the 228 incident, the victims of state violence are honored here at the 228 Peace Memorial Park. Established in 1996, it stands in the heart of Taipei, and it's one of the stops for this year's commemorative march.
After Taiwan became a democracy in the 1990s, the government began to acknowledge the harm caused by the 228 incident. But activists here say it's important, now more than ever, to keep fighting to memorialize the event. They point to recent sweeping government budget cuts, to governmental human rights offices as a threat to advocacy work, a concern shared by political scholars.
So National Human Rights Commission is responsible for promoting the human rights issues, human rights education, and also the international connections. But it stashed for more than 90% of its budget. So its capacity to promote education and for the victims, memorial events are highly limited right now.
Which is why for these demonstrators holding vigil in Taipei, it's important to show up like this every year, to exercise their hard-fought right to mark this painful chapter in the country's history, and continue the fight for transitional justice. A fight that is deeply personal for someone like Zheng Qinghua, who is determined to keep speaking truth to power, advocating for awareness of an event that still shapes contemporary Taiwanese society. Howard Zhang and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
To mark Peace Memorial Day, a local magazine has organized an English language walking tour of some of the key locations related to the 228 incident. Rick Lauer reports on how organizers hope for more awareness of key events on Taiwan's difficult road to democracy.
It's on this street in central Taipei that in 1947, an altercation between a cigarette seller and a government official sparked deadly protests that led to a countrywide uprising against the Chinese nationalist government here in Taiwan. That protest became known as the February 28 incident, and it was violently suppressed by the government. It ushered in decades of state violence and political oppression here in Taiwan. Now, a local activist and journalist hopes to keep memory of that incident alive and share the lessons of February 28 with as wide an audience as possible, with this new English language walking tour of some of the important sites from that day.
I think that memory is something that needs to be kept alive, because it is something that happened 78 years ago. Anyone who is alive then and experienced it is quite old now, if they are still alive. And so there's a need for the younger generation to keep this memory alive. And in the meantime, there are also those that would try to erase this memory, that they hope people forget about it.
February 28 is now Peace Memorial Day here in Taiwan, a chance to remember and reflect on the tens of thousands of people that died or suffered at the hands of Taiwan's authoritarian government. Taiwan is now a vibrant democracy, but organizers hope that through events like this, people will continue to remember the incident of February 28 and to not take today's freedom for granted. Chris Ma and Rick Lowett in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The Education Ministry says it will restrict exchanges between Taiwan's academic institutions and 7 military-linked universities in China. The ministry says those universities have aided China's military in weapons development and act on behalf of Beijing's influence operations under its United Front Work Department. The U.S. blacklisted 18 Chinese universities in 2020, including the 7 Taiwan restricted, citing threats to national security. Thailand has sent at least 40 Uyghurs back to China. That's despite warnings from the United Nations and rights groups that they're at risk of poor treatment and even torture. But Bangkok says it's been assured they will be treated well. Tristan has more.
Landing in China from Thailand, this man is one of dozens of Uyghurs deported by Bangkok on an unscheduled flight after a decade in detention, seen here in a video shared by the Thai government. The recorded moment, a stark contrast to condemnations from the international community, who warned that sending the Uyghurs back to China would put their lives in danger.
Their deportation violates the principle of non-refoulement, for which there is a complete prohibition in cases where there is a real risk of torture, ill treatment, or other irreparable harm upon their return.
Bangkok says it's repatriated the Uyghurs after no third country came forward to take them, and after Beijing gave assurances they would be well looked after. The men had been held in the Southeast Asian country for a decade, arrested for entering without a visa. They'd fled from China's Xinjiang region. Some have died in custody over the years, but there are fears their fate won't be better in China. Rights groups have long accused Beijing of abusing and committing genocide against the mainly Muslim ethnic minority, claims Beijing vehemently denies. Bangkok's move to deport, now also condemned by its long-standing ally, the United States, which has been criticized for the way it's conducting its own deportations of undocumented migrants. In a statement, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Thailand risks running afoul of its international obligations and urged the country to verify that the men's rights are protected. In recent weeks, Bangkok has been working closely with Beijing, cracking down on transnational scam centers in areas near the Thai-Myanmar border. Thailand has also been trying to attract Chinese tourists to visit the country, a crucial source of its GDP. All factors that have raised eyebrows around the Uyghurs' deportation.
Clearly, the Thai government, it seems that Beijing has been putting a lot of pressure on Thailand for the return of these men, but the way in which this occurred, in the dead of night, with no information provided, no information to diplomats, to the UN, to human rights organizations who have repeatedly been asking the Thai government questions about the fate of these men, is really unacceptable. And I think, the Thai government is a member of the UN Human Rights Council. It makes a mockery of its membership of the Human Rights Council.
Rights groups are urging Thailand not to send back the remaining Uyghurs in Thai custody to China. They're also turning their attention to Beijing to demand authorities disclose the whereabouts of these men and verify their safety. Joseph Wu and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
India and the European Union have agreed to push to get a free trade pact finalized by the end of this year. That's according to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who is on a visit to New Delhi. After meeting with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, von der Leyen said the two sides had great opportunities for partnership at a time of geopolitical tensions. Talks on an EU-India trade pact resumed in 2021 after being on hold for 8 years. Thousands of people have been forced to evacuate their homes as forest fires sweep across northeastern Japan. The fires first broke out in Ofunato City on Wednesday. Japanese media reports at least one person has died and at least 84 homes have been damaged. Rescue teams are searching for people affected by the fires. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to Sicily to check out this ancient cheese throwing game played during the carnival season. I'm Ethan, take care, and I'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan, Paris, France, and around the world, please follow TaiwanPlus on social media and download our app. Man, that's beautiful.